How do you invest in oil and gas? I get that question often. I've been talking about now is the time to invest in oil and gas. If you've been watching the news, you will see that the oil and gas industry has been taken by storm, by the perfect storm. The Saudi Arabia and Russia oil price war, COVID-19 damaging oil demand in a big way. It's a multiple front storm that has destroyed oil and gas production. Okay. Now, on top of all that, you have all the Democrats that are preaching to the world, and they're getting all the focus right now because it is an election year, that the oil and gas industry is the devil. In fact, Joe Biden even went on as far to say that if he's elected, he's going to be putting some of these oil and gas company owners in prison for damaging the environment, which is completely ridiculous, and some people believe that those lies, half the country. But so what's happening? There's a major oil and gas shrinking going on, but we still have a demand of 70 million barrels a day that took a century to build to that level. And so we lost 30 million barrel a day demand quite simply because we're at home right now. We're not driving because of the lockdown, but your car's still sitting out front. So what's going to happen? You're going to jump in your car. You're going to drive to the movies. You're going to drive out to get that steak dinner, to have a cold beer. That's what I'm going to do. But bottom line, we are going to increase our demand exuberantly overnight when this lockdown ends. Okay. Now, with that said, it produces the greatest moment to invest in oil and gas. With the production shrinking and with the demand that's going to come back quickly, we're going to be in a situation where we're not going to have enough oil to meet demand for a period of time. And with that said, you're going to see a major increase in oil prices. Now, where is that going? It could be 80. It could be $100 a barrel. Who knows? I know that a lot of the people out there, they get mad at me when I say these high prices. So calm down, guys. I'm just going to say, I'll let you guess, okay? But there are people out there much smarter than me that are saying this, and they believe oil prices will reasonably be around $100 a barrel. Now, how do you invest in oil and gas? Well, if you invest in the stock market, you're investing in shale. Okay, the largest companies in the world are on the stock market, and they are predominantly in the Permian Basin, in the Bakken Shale, in North Dakota, in Texas, in different parts of the world. They are mainly focused in shale. Why? Because there's no other place to develop. They ran out of conventional plays, as that's been the play that's been around for decades. And now they went to shale. Why? Because it's a massive resource play. It is the largest structure that spans hundreds of miles across Texas and different states in America. And so it's a very easy resource to find and discover, and it's very low risk. Okay, you just drill a well and the shale is there. But the problem with shale, it takes a technology called fracking. Fracking is very expensive. It costs anywhere from $5 to upwards of $20 million just to frack a well. Then on top of that, you got to drill a very deep well. And so when you spend $10, $20 million to drill a well, you better produce a lot of oil. Well, the problem with shale is that it's a very tight, porous sand. That's why they invented fracking, to break it up like an explosion. They used to use dynamite back in the day, but now they use fracking. And when you artificially stimulate a formation, Mother Nature always wins. It'll eventually go back to what Mother Nature intended. It goes back down from 1,000 barrels a day down to like 100. Okay. Now, if you spend $500,000 to drill a well and you're producing 100 barrels a day, you're going to make a lot of money. But if you have a well that costs $15 million and it's producing 100 barrels a day, that's a big fat loser in my book. Okay. So the problem with the stock market is that you're really not investing in oil, you're investing in shale. Sean, how do I make money in the oil and gas industry? In my industry, conventional oil places are the only projects that are profitable in this current situation with low oil prices. A conventional oil play is what worked back in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s when oil prices were very low. Okay, a conventional oil play is a high porosity sandstone or structure where you don't have to use a massive frac to develop. And instead of spending $10 to $20 million to drill a well, you're spending anywhere from $500,000 to $800,000 to drill a well. Now, if we produce 30, 40, 50 to 100 barrels a day, now you're making a major profit. Okay. Now, if a well produces 100 barrels a day and oil prices are currently $30 a barrel, if you take 100 barrels a day, multiply it times $30 a barrel, that's $3,000 a day of income. Multiply 3,000 times 30 days of production, that's a $90,000 gross. So in 10 months, that's $900,000 gross, okay? $900,000 in 10 months on a $600,000 oil and gas well, that's a pretty good investment, okay? Now, that in a nutshell, that's why we develop oil and gas. On top of that, you get to write off your investment 100% against your earned income. Okay, you get to write off what's called IDCs, intangible drilling costs. The IRS gives you 100% tax write-off. Now, back a few years ago, before Donald Trump was in office, you could only write off about 60 to 80% of your total investment off the first year, and then you amortize the rest of it over the next 3 or 4 years. Okay, so it'd take you about 5 years to get 100% tax write-off. Now you get it right up front, in 100% tax write-off first year. Okay. And then in addition to being an incredible tax write-off, it could generate income for the next, potentially for the next 20, 30 years. Right now, the reason why it's time to invest is because I'm able to get into premium leases that I wouldn't be able to get into had oil prices dropped. Okay. Less demand for oil investments destroys the competition. There's been a major divestment in oil and gas because of the Democrats and also because of the oil price crash. And people are sitting on their hands thinking, what is going to happen after COVID-19? And so a lot of people are sitting on their hands and not investing anything. And so right now is the time to invest. And the guys that are in the know that have been through the storm and beaten the storms, they're getting involved right now. Okay. The problem that I'm running into is that the banks are not lending anymore. So there's the banks have completely dried up because they've spent billions and billions of dollars in shale and they lost. Well, if you watched my videos from years ago, you could have listened to that and learned right there that shale is not a good investment. But that's neither here nor there. So Sean, how does this work? I don't have $600,000 to invest. I don't have $1 million to invest. Well, that's okay. So the way we break up these oil and gas projects, we call them joint ventures. Okay. And so essentially imagine, let's say the well cost $1 million. Okay. Well, what I'll do is I'll take that $1 million oil and gas project and break it up in 10 units. Okay. And so each unit will be 100,000. All right. And so it just depends on the program, but we might have half units or quarter units. So the minimum investment might be 25,000. Okay. And so we have what's called working interest. Okay. Working interest. So for instance, if we had 100% working interest in an oil well, if you owned one unit, you would own 10% working interest. But the operator and the landowner, the mineral rights owner, get a percentage off the top. And so they might take 25%, leaving 75% net revenue to the investors, okay? So you as an investor, you pay for 100% of the well for 75% of the working interest, okay? And so if we had 10 pieces to this pie, you would get 7.5 pieces of the pie, and I would get 2.5 pieces because we've got the geologists, we have the engineers, we have the know-how, we do all the legwork, the landowner, the farmer, the Texas farmer, or the whoever owns the lease, they should be compensated as well. And the common compensation is about 12.5% ownership of what comes out of the ground, just for allowing us to go out and develop on their lease. This is how it works. Nobody gives up royalty. Nobody gives up mineral interest anymore. If they sell land, more than likely you're not going to be able to get those mineral interests, because the mineral interests a lot of times are worth much more than what the land is worth. So nobody gives that up anymore. So we do what's called a lease acquisition. Okay, we lease the land because we don't have any interest in farming the land. We don't have any interest in sitting out there for the next 100 years working the land, working the ground. All we want to do is drill a well, have the rights to access the location, and drill the well and pump the oil as long as she can. It doesn't make any sense to buy a piece of property if that's all we're going to do. And so they give us the rights to drill. They give us the rights to drive our trucks on and off the lease when we need to service the well properly. And then, of course, the oil is picked up by what's called the gatherers. The gatherers are the guys that come pick up the oil and then take it to the local refinery. And so what they do is they pick up the oil, they drive it to a local refinery, and the local refinery will send a check to the operator. Okay, and so if you bring a truckload of oil, you have to have a well number. A well number is like a social security number. If you don't have a well number, then they're just going to assume that you stole the oil and you're just trying to sell it. Okay, and so you can't do that. And so the refinery sends a check directly to the operator to prevent people from getting stolen from. So nobody's going to steal our oil. They can't sell it. Okay, this isn't Saudi Arabia or Iran. They don't do that stuff out here in America. And so once they sell the oil, and they sell it for a spot price, okay? So it's called WTI, West Texas Intermediate, all right? And so whatever the current oil price is, they take how many barrels of oil, multiply it times how much oil is in the tank, times current West Texas Intermediate price, and they subtract severance tax from there, and then they send out a check, and then that check gets distributed amongst all the partners. And so it goes from the refinery out to the operator, and the operator distributes based upon your proportionate share, and you will own that ownership in the well for the lifetime of the well. And so everything that we do to the well, we might hit 5 zones, and we might produce oil from one zone for the next 5 years. And then we'll hit another zone, and we'll keep doing that until the well is completely depleted. You own all the oil that comes out of that well for the life of the well until it's bone dry. And this might last for the next 20, 30 years. And so in a nutshell, that's how this whole thing works. And I've been in this business. I made my first oil and gas investment at the age of 16. And I've been in love with this industry ever since. And my geologist, he has been in this industry much longer than I have. He has a track record of 90% in the same county. We just drilled 2 successful wells recently, just a few months ago, and we're currently completing those wells. We're seeing oil come out of the ground. Very exciting. And we have another project that we're ready to start raising capital for. So if you wish to learn more, give me a call. I'd love to chat with you. My office number is posted in the description there. You could feel free to look up my number and give me a call, or you could send me an email, or you could click on the link in the description to request more information. I hope you enjoyed these videos. Please subscribe to my channel. Sometimes I post videos about current news, current events, what's happening in the oil and gas industry. If you're in the oil and gas industry, whether as an investor, you're curious, or you're actually in the business of the oil and gas industry as a driller or operator, this is the channel for you. Hope you enjoyed this video. Again, subscribe, and we will talk soon. Thanks.